Good afternoon, Newbridge on the Charles residents. Welcome to Tuesdays with Security. Very happy to see everybody here. This is a very important topic, and one of the main topics that we discussed, my leadership team, on what we wanted to accomplish with Tuesdays with Security. And our mission statement for Tuesdays with Security is to discuss security responses, train residents in the form of in-services, and talk about the important part of an emergency response in any particular topic. There is no topic that is routinely broached with me on a regular basis than emergency fire preparedness for the IL members. We do annual drills, and we are planning to do our annual fall drill, but we have noticed a decline in participation. So this Tuesday with Security topic is one that we're going to have repeated sessions, and we're actually going to broadcast it on 9/18. Just to kind of, repetition is the mother of all things. They always say, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. Thank you, Arlene. Practice. So I have a tendency to go off the rails with talking. And I'm not going to do that this time because I have two men, two leaders, two shepherds of the community that I am very proud to say that I have the honor of working with every day. These two men have been integral in designing our security program here at Newbridge on the Charles. And it has been breathtaking to watch us evolve and get better with each and every year. So without further ado, two fathers, two great men, brotherly kindness, soon to be a father, Noah Bork, my senior training compliance officer. Baby Bork, his first daughter, is getting ready to join us any moment. We're all excited. The whole Newbridge security team family is excited for him. And William Kent, a man who really needs no introduction. He is a man who carved a niche for himself from day one when I walked through here. I call him the designer. He literally upgraded our pull station when they were antiquated and end of life, and he successfully just project managed a $300,000 persona lock transition. You are in mighty great hands with these two gentlemen. Please listen to what they have to say. They put together a real comprehensive presentation. Give them deference to get through the presentation, and then after we will open things up to questions and answers. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy the program.
So first up, we're going to talk about fire. Luckily for us, fire is not very common here at Newbridge on the Charles. We've typically mostly dealt with burnt food issues. That said, a lot of burnt food issues can result in a fire department response from Dedham. And we're going to talk about the differences between those kinds of levels of response and what to do if such a situation gets further than it was originally expected to. Thankfully, I can only think of one actual fire that we've had here in the IL community. Going from that, we're going to teach people on what to do during these responses, what expectations you have. We'll also go over what our staff does as well during these kinds of responses. And of course, things change when the fire department does get here, and we'll discuss that a little bit more. But one thing to note is when the fire department shows up here on campus, they are the ones in charge. So we take orders from them in the event of a fire department response. So the three kinds of responses to a smoke or fire condition. We have the local or limited response. This is typically when most people will experience this at some point if they've burnt food and they've had to have the fire department to reset the alarm. In these situations, it only is in your unit. Big thing to note is anytime a smoke detector is activated in the public hallways, or if two or more of your smoke detectors are activated, it will go into a building-wide alarm. Building-wide alarms are the second one, or something we call code red within our security department and within our staff training. And the last response possibility is evacuation. And again, like I mentioned before, incident command is anytime security, fire, or EMS responds to such events.
So next we're going to talk about is all the notifications. Some of you are already aware of the life safety, the code yellow pull chain ones that are inside your apartments, inside the common areas and hallways, as you can see next to the doors here, these push for help buttons. Some residents also have the life safety devices, the purse necklace, those pendant devices that you wear. Some of you wearing them now on your wrist or around your neck. These are the emergency devices that are connected to our system 24/7. As you can see as well, listed here, the pull fire stations.
Push or pull, depending on where it's located. By fire code, the pull stations, which you see right there on the left, there's one at least every 75 feet in the building. And what we ask everybody to understand is these alarms are only for fires. They are not used for any other emergency situation. That's what we have the code, the push for help buttons or the pull for help if you're in a bathroom area. For example, some places like the bathrooms over by Nosh or Centro, they have pull chains on them in the event somebody were to collapse in there and they needed to pull a chain.
And we'll talk about the phone lines as well for the two numbers that we have for the security business line as well as the emergency line.
For any emergency situation, that top number, 49911, that's the internal extension to our emergency line. That's the one you want to call in any emergency situation where you need security ASAP, such as a medical situation, fire situation, or further. The other one, the one that most people know, is the business line, 49260. That pretty much is everything else that we get here, and a lot of phone numbers after 5 o'clock transfer to it. So if you've ever made calls late at night, chances are you've talked to the security dispatch office. So when we talk about fire response, one thing we want to make sure is that people are aware of their surroundings. We want people to be aware of exit signs, doorways. For example, right over there in this room, there's exit signs that go into the hallway to go elsewhere in the building, or in the case of the one over here, it is an exit that goes outside. Please note, a lot of exit doors that go outside are non-reentry, meaning if you go outside of them, you're locked out. Preferably, we always like to have people go through the front entrance, unless if it's obviously blocked due to fire and smoke. So be familiar with your buildings. Again, if you have a cell phone, program the full number, and it's listed here, and we'll also have that in a pamphlet we're going to be releasing soon. But I believe everybody should have a fridge magnet with both of the full written numbers of the extensions for security. We want people to have that program in their phone and be familiar with calling that in the event you have a situation such as maybe you see something suspicious, or maybe you're locked out of your apartment. It's best if you use the business line for all non-emergency matters. And again, exit signs, they're everywhere. We have signage in every stairwell. It warns people about reentry. We are in the process of upgrading some signs because there is some confusion for some people. So we'll show you a couple of pictures of them. So the ones like this that just say exit without arrows, the reason why they don't have arrows on them is simply because there are multiple routes of egress. If you ever look in the campus around, you'll see these at every elevator. Every elevator lobby should have a sign sort of like this, mostly to discourage you from using an elevator during a fire alarm. And we'll go over why that is in just a moment. But be familiar with them. They list all sorts of different things, such as a ideal exit route and other locations, such as obviously bathrooms and other locations on it. In the case of this is a picture from the healthcare center. But again, going back to that, here's an example of, on the right there is the exit stairwell that we have in like the 3000. Okay. So some of our technologies we have throughout the campus that monitor. We have the CO/smoke/heat/fire detectors everywhere. You'll see them all around. They're throughout the building, throughout the facility, in your apartment. There are multiple ones. Depending on how many alarms are triggered, again, like I mentioned before, it may result in a full building-wide notification. So keep that in mind. They also detect other things. Now we have the sprinkler system here, which we've seen activated in the only fire that we've actually had here on campus. They're very fast. They actually, although we did stop the fire, they completely drenched it so that it was completely cool, that there was no heat left following such an event. And the other thing to note too, although we don't recommend residents use them, we do have the fire extinguishers throughout the building. Again, like the pull stations, there's one every 75 feet. In the event we have a fire situation up at the cottages, part of our response is to take fire extinguishers with us from any of the stations throughout the campus on our way over and bring them up to the cottages. Some basic recommendations. Stay low to the ground. Do not panic. Take your time, as long as it's safe to do so. You know, if the alarm system hasn't already activated, use the pull station, notify security, call out for a fire if there's other people around you. You know,
One thing with the pull station is once those pull stations are activated, it does trigger the alarm,
the building-wide one.
the building wide, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail.
So, and again, one thing to note is if you are mobility challenged or if you need assistance in such an event, like such as, let's say you're on the second or third floor and you have a hard time. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I'm trying not to blow it out just because, yeah. So again, we do have a list that we maintain for anybody who is mobility challenged. If you need to be added onto that list, please give our security dispatch office a call. We want to make sure that anybody who does need assistance is on that list and it's up to date. Again, so in the event of a fire and we need to evacuate, security will be responding directly to those units that need assistance first. A lot of people who are mobility challenged can't get downstairs, and we'll go over what to do if you do have the ability to leave your apartment but can't get down the stairs.
So this is the part where we talk about what to do in the event of a fire. How to tell if you're in the building with the active fire alarm. As I said, you will hear an audible message via the overhead, the intercom system, the PA system that is in every building, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, and 7,000. This audible message, if the active alarm, active fire is in your building, will be in the sound of a female voice. This pre-recorded message will alert you to exit safely and vacate the building. You'll also hear a loud, high-pitched beeping noise. Again, might not be in your apartment. You will hear the hallway once going off. Also associated will be the white lights blinking in the public halls, okay, and inside your units. They do have on everyone's unit, you'll see those alarms going off. You'll see the audible lights flashing.
So one thing to note with the fire alarms when responding is obviously immediately proceed to the nearest safe exit. We prefer that you go to the ground floor main entrance, as that's where incident command will be, and we'll be giving updates to anybody nearby immediately. Again, wait outside by the main entrance for further instructions. If we actually have to evacuate to a staging point, we'll go over that part too. One thing to note is if you're not sure, if you hear about a fire alarm but you don't hear the overhead announcement with the lady's voice, usually it'll say something like, "Please exit to the nearest, please move to the nearest exit point." It'll be something called an adjoining alarm. Typically, it'll be a lower pitched male voice telling you that a nearby building is in alarm. So let's say, for example, if something happens in the 5,000 building, the 7,000, the 6,000, and 3 and 4,000 buildings will also get that alarm with an adjoining message. It won't be an evacuation, but it's warning you that you may have to respond or evacuate. When you hear this, stand by for further instructions. Do not proceed to the building that is an active alarm. Again, do not move towards where the fire is. In the event you are asked to evacuate, for example, don't return back into the building. We want to try and make incident command, the fire and EMS, their job a little bit easier. So one of the things we do is routinely, our team, everybody who's onboarded, and quarterly for the nursing staff, both in assisted living and healthcare, we regularly train with fire drills. And for the healthcare center, we actually do a lot of actual real live drills quarterly, so that everybody knows what they're looking for, what they're listening for, if there's any failures, what to do. We practice an acronym on our badges that we all have. Every employee gets it. For us, we get it on the back of our badge, and it tells us what to do during a fire alarm. And that acronym we practice is called RACE. Very simple to follow, a lot of words, but it's pretty easy to understand. R stands for remove yourself or others from immediate danger. A stands for alert. If the alarm system that monitors for fires hasn't already activated, notify somebody or press the or use the push station or pull station to activate for a fire. C stands for contain, close doors and windows, make sure things are closed behind you. We're trying to slow the spread of a fire. And E can stand for either extended response, which is just another way of saying stand by for further instructions, or evacuate, depending on the nature of the situation that you're in. And again, like I mentioned before, close doors and windows. It's a really big thing. If you're in the process of leaving your apartment, during a fire alarm response, you want to make sure you close your doors and windows. In the event of an actual fire, which we have seen, opening your doors and windows can make it worse because you're supplying it oxygen. And what we're trying to do is make it so there's less smoke and fire that's moving throughout the building. One thing to note is smoke is actually usually the biggest killer. And we're going to show a couple of slides after this on why you probably should close your doors and windows. Or let's say, hypothetically, if a fire was in your way, blocking your path out of an area, what to do. So we talk about this, we show this quite regularly. This is something we got from our partners at Russell Phillips, now known as Jensen Hughes, who helped write our emergency operating procedures we use here on campus. So as you can see right here, this is what happened to a building that had sustained a fire about, I'm going to say, 17 years ago, down south. Another senior living location. Somebody set fire to the building. Staff didn't have proper protocols on what to do. They never trained regularly on it. This is something we use as an example of why our teams and all the other staff teams train on this regularly. We're the ones that are here 24/7. We're the ones that respond to these kinds of situations. So when we say, even if you can't leave the area where there's a fire nearby, as long as you close the doors and stay behind you, this is the most that'll usually happen. You'll get just a little bit of soot, tiny amount of smoke coming through the door. This is something that we want you to understand is another option in the event you can't evacuate. And again, this is what it looks like from the outside. As you can tell, scorched. Inside the room's completely fine, untouched practically. Only a little bit of soot around the doorway. There's many kinds of situations that we've talked about before in the past, and these are usually what we call the best images that really get the point across for what we're saying when you say close doors and windows behind you, because the fire can spread really quickly, and the more oxygen you supply for it, the more it'll grow and spread.
We'll talk more about the fire-rated doors as well. Each individual apartment, your entry door to your apartment has a specific fire rating. It's 90 minutes of direct fire on your door. Okay, so like you showed in the pictures, the safest thing to do is make sure you are closing that door when you're exiting, when you're entering. Okay. Types of evacuations that we have, there's two, vertical and horizontal. Obviously, we recommend always use stairs. In the event the fire is in your apartment, in your building, you always want to make sure you are not using the elevators. Will mentioned earlier, in the event that you need assistance, we have that list in our security office, which we update regularly. So if you need additional assistance and have not told us yet, please do so at the end of this.
Going for the horizontal evacuation, this one's a bit more open-ended. It's all like most of these situations, it's very situational. So a horizontal evacuation is pretty much anytime you move on the same basic floor level that you're on to another point. For example, if you were in the 5,000 building right upstairs by Mary's desk, you could technically move into the 7,000 building as a horizontal evacuation point. It's actually one of the things we train over in the healthcare center for the RSU and memory support, that one of their evacuation points is actually level 1 in 5,000 by Mary's desk as a first primary area before we get to a staging point. Another thing you can evacuate to is a stairwell door. Now, the way that we talked about with the fireproof doors is that they're very good. They're very resistant towards flames, anywhere from 50 to 90 minutes of continuous flame. It'll be much quicker than that in terms of the fire alarm response. In the event of the fire that we did experience here, the fire department was here in 6 minutes, and the sprinkler system had already activated prior to their arrival. So when we say get to a stairwell, as long as there's no smoke or fire, you could wait right next to it outside of it. Part of our response training during an actual evacuation is to go floor by floor, stairwell by stairwell. We work with fire and EMS. We've had to do it before, back when we had the fire in the 1,000 building. And we'll show a couple pictures of some of the equipment. But, you can wait there, congregate, as long as it's safe to do so. Obviously, don't block somebody's path if they need to get downstairs. Don't stay near the area if there's smoke and fire, get on the other side of the doorway, but leave enough room for other people to get by you. Just keep that in mind. And another thing to note too is for cottages, you have many points of egress. You obviously have, some units have 2 or 3 patio entrances or side doors to get in and out of their cottage. As well, for some of the units any units that have like a second floor, such as we have 4 units in the 5,000 building on the 3rd floor, and there's a few cottages that have lofts. Obviously, if you still have mobility challenges and you're up there, security will be responding to help evacuate you. We'll use the same kind of equipment we use in the 1,000 through 5,000 building to get people down. So, once incident command is activated, either security, fire, EMS, follow their instructions. Now, a lot of times, we're able to respond to the scene, determine that it's actually not a fire, and hopefully, if we're quick enough, we're able to get to the fire panel and give announcements saying whether or not it's safe to exit, whether you need to exit or whether it's safe to just remain in your homes, and we'll keep repeating it every so often. Again, we cannot silence the alarms. Security is not allowed to. Per fire code and DEDM, we have to wait till the fire chief or their command leader comes on scene, and they take over and they give us the authorization to reset it. again, helps slow the spread of fire, close doors and windows when you're evacuating, if instructed to. And again, do not re-enter the building, do not re-enter the room. During the previous fire that we did have to redirect the residents from coming back in the building. Where the unit was fully involved with smoke and fire, they still thought it's not that bad and tried to get in. So we really mean it when you're removed from the building, do not re-enter until given authority to do so. And real quickly, we'll go over the staging areas that we use. So for all the main buildings down here in the lower campus, 1,000 through 7,000 building, we will be using this area, Great Meadow Hall. That's our primary area. It's a central location between all the buildings. This is our recommended area for independent living and assisted living. Another location we have is the aisle courtyard or the parking garage, depending on weather. Lastly is the conservatory over by the healthcare center on level 0 near the security office. If you've ever been over by the security office, you may have seen a giant lobby area where people have events. That's another area. It's kind of like their version of Great Meadow Hall. For cottages, what we ask is that you get to an exit or egress point and wait there for further instructions. Depending on weather or what's going on, we may actually evacuate people in the cottages to one of those 3 staging areas that we mentioned. If you can.
So Will talked about, the sense of urgency, and I think that's really important. Take only what you need when evacuating. Your car keys, if you still drive, your badge, very important, right? Your ID badge, a jacket, depending on the weather, and a cell phone if needed. If you're home and fire or smoke is actually blocking your exit, obviously we ask that you move to another room. Make sure that the door is closed. That is our number 1 priority. If you're leaving home and the hazard is actually blocking you, for instance, if the fire is in your kitchen and you can't get out, like Will said, if it's in the cottages,
Or if there's a fire is actually in the hallway, if let's say there's a fire blocking your path to the stairwell, head to the other stairwell, or return back home, depending on what the situation is.
So back to kind of what we talked about is environmental awareness. Know your surroundings, know your exit points, kind of be comfortable walking around your apartment, walking around the buildings, knowing which exit points lead where. That's very important.
For most buildings here on campus, there are at least 4 exit doors, egress points, such as the ones in the stairwells. There's also the main entrance, and sometimes for the other buildings like 3 and 4,000, they connect directly to the 5,000 building. That's another egress point you can stage at or wait. Again, we would like it if it's safe to do so, go through the main entrance. Reason being is that we have had concerns where people took the stairs down and then decided to leave that doorway and wait outside there. It takes us a little while from when we clear the incident before we start checking all the areas. It's part of our response process, but we have to do that following the alarm restoral. And again, here's Great Meadow Hall, our first staging area, parking garage, and the courtyard, and the conservatory. And again, if you're not familiar with this, if you haven't been over to the healthcare center, this is what it looks like from another angle, but it's right by the front desk, right near where the security office is. So if you've been at least to security, it's right next door to it. So in that picture right there is something we call a striker chair, but there's many different names for it. We have other devices too, such as a sled to get downstairs. But responding fire, in EMS, and security, we all have access to this equipment. We ourselves store it in a strategic point over in the villas and the buildings on the north and south side. Fire themselves also maintains this equipment on hand, as does EMS. EMS actually regularly has this equipment on hand because they usually do a lot of transfers to people in tight stairwells in private residences. So, again, if you are mobility challenged, you need help getting up and down stairs, and you feel like you need assistance, be aware that security will be responding to help you get out. Another thing to note that wasn't really mentioned before is if the fire department gives us an evacuation order, you know, you have to follow it, and we will have to help get you out of the building, even if you feel like you're safe. It's part of our fire code response that you leave the building when instructed to do so. Otherwise, the fire department will just take you out themselves. So, post-fire alarm, what to do? You know, one of the things we do is that we cannot silence the alarm until Dedham Fire tells us to. So basically, once we have identified the issue, or we've gotten the okay for people to come back in the building and return, that's when we will allow people to come back in. From there, we will do an all clear message. This again only applies to the 1,000 through 7,000 buildings. For the cottages, we will just go door to door to make sure everybody is aware of what happened, what went on. And from there, security, we do our own perimeter checks and safety checks. We had a fire alarm, for example, in the 5,000 building a month ago. I was there with that. We go through each stairwell, check to make sure anybody's waiting in or outside of it, and keep doing that until all stairwells and doorways and exit points have been cleared. Some of our partners that we work with are MassMap. MassMap is actually, or is it called, the Mutual Aid Plan. They've been something we've been working with since this place has been opened. We work alongside 400 plus other similar facilities like ours to help evacuate people in and out of the facility. An example would be a couple years ago, Rosendale, our other campus, the Heber Rehab Center. A nearby facility had a pipe burst, and we actually had to hold some patients while the building was being repaired and while patients were impacted in that building. The same thing would apply to us. If something were to happen here, we would have those resources available on hand, working with obviously the Dedham Fire Department, which is in the picture in the top left. Transformative Healthcare, which is the new name for Fallon. If you've seen the Transformative Healthcare ambulances, that's the new name for Fallon Ambulance. We also have agreements and relationships with Cataldo and Brewster Ambulance. Brewster Ambulance is our primary provider here on campus for all non-emergency assists. And again, that's called the Mutual Aid Plan, or MassMap. So that's something that we do and train with regularly. In fact, I believe we have another training that we're doing. Our security team will be working with our sister site, Heber Rehab Center, in October to go over what to do during an evacuation, how to, label things, how to transport people, how to document everything, and bring them over. And we do this annually. And that concludes our presentation. So now we open it up to Q&A.
Yep. All right. So, before I'm going to turn it over to Mayor, and I know we got a few questions. I really want to reemphasize one of the gists that both Will and Noah intimated throughout the course of the presentation. Knowing your environment before a fire alarm or an emergency event, it's important. You want to learn it before an alarm. That's the only way you're going to have the confidence to sort of know which way to environmentally go should there be an alarm. So I'm going to turn this over to Mayor.
I actually have two questions. One is, how frequently do you check the exit doors, like, for example, here? Because the last time we tried to use them, it was next to impossible to open them. Now, that was in the winter, so I don't know if it was corrosion or what have you, but some of those doors may not be easily opened by a 80-pound, 90-year-old woman. The second thing is, these evacuation areas, what's the capacity for, like Great Meadow Hall? I mean, there's how many people in this building?
All right, Mayor. So question number one, We do have preventative maintenance in the healthcare center side and assisted living side, I believe, on emergency egress doors. And because of New England weather being so inclement and like a lot of, weather wear, it's a constant battle. But I do like that. I think, we do overnight walkway safety checks. I think we
do walkway safety checks during the winter, but one thing we actually do every week in assisted living, and that's something we also do during our overnight touring, is that we do actually check the stairwells and doors to make sure that they're not being propped open and that they open and close properly.
Yeah.
That said, sometimes it is a little bit easier for our staff to do it. We got a lot of 200-plus pound guys that could just force it right open.
Yeah.
If we identify issues, or if you identify an issue, let's say you want to just check and see what door.
Yeah.
Let
We
us
can
know.
certainly employ some sort of monthly check. I'm always a big fan of doing these sort of audits. So we'll definitely consider that, Mayor. But there are regulatory oversight on us checking stuff. But at the same time, Mayor, and I want to make this explicitly clear, guys, I have a very small team responding to 170 plus acres, 3 different business units with a lot of activity. A lot of activity. And Mayor, you've been a champion, and a lot of people here have been champions of see something, say something. So we have some talented technicians here. John Bernardo is recently joined us. Incredibly responsive, just as responsive as these two gentlemen and our IT liaison, Joe Bernardo. So we really rely on, it takes the community to protect the community. And it is all of our responsibility to speak up. Don't speak up at the community meeting in a gotcha moment. Send it to the appropriate people. These gentlemen that I work with every day are highly responsive, and they track work orders and things like that. Don't get confused with the front desks. It's the security team. A lot of times people, go through the front desk, but if you want to make sure that a work ticket is going to be facilitated appropriately, you call the number that you have programmed on your smartphone and talk to our dispatcher, and a real-time work ticket will be done. Now, question number 2. We've done COOP plans with Jensen, Russell Phillips partners. This has the capacity, and again, don't get me in a gotcha moment, Mayor, because my memory sucks. It's like about 240, I think, but
That's obviously depending on space and the kind of patients or residents involved.
But here's the thing too. We sort of think about this topic in like the worst case scenario, like a whole community evacuation. That's not reality. There are so many layers of safety here that literally it's all broken down into sectors. And each sector has smoke barriers and concrete fire rated, in between the 5,000 and the 6,000, this whole area is one huge concrete smoke barrier with heat sensors, sprinkler systems. So it's designed to knock down fires in sections. The reality is limited evacuations, small areas that are affected by smoke. So it would always be a small, limited evacuation. In 23 years working at Dana-Farber, Leahy Clinic, Sun Microsystems, Newbridge on the Charles, which has been a really amazing 11 years. Like Will said in the presentation, and here's the thing, guys, we don't rely on history. We rely on what's in front of us. We are true emergency responders. We've had one limited evacuation in 11 years, 1,000. And to be, like Will said, the fire department, when they came, they took incident command. They wanted the 1,000 evacuated.
And we got
if emergency response, there's 3 rules, right? Number 1, Number one, and most importantly, put your feelings aside. Number two, commit to action. Number three, follow instructions. The fire department came, said, we want everyone out. We had to get everyone out. Nobody wanted to leave. So that's in 11 years, guys. That's how much, and that's why I love emergency response. So when we were going through the presentation, and it was a 2003 event, it was actually in upstate New York. People lost their lives. They asphyxiated in their sleep because doors were left open. That's why there are fire-rated doors in places like this. It's not negotiable, the 90-minute fire-rated doors. Sheltering in place for a community where we deal with frailty. Life happens. We've all seen it. And it's the human condition that binds us all. So there's a lot of layers of safety. Okay.
Victor,
You know what? I'm going to get right to you.
but real quick, another thing to note is when people are evacuated, we think of it like it's going to be a very long time. In the case of the 1000 building, I believe residents were only kept out of the building for 45 minutes, except for the impacted residents. They unfortunately needed to go elsewhere because of how involved the fire was. But for the majority of people, they were back in the building within an hour.
Excellent point. Excellent point. It's precautionary.
Right. I have been here for like 4 years, and just last week I asked somebody, I decided that if there was a fire, I would die because I have a walker. And that's when I found out. I asked some guy who's walking around who I knew was security, what happens? And so I hope I'm on the list.
We could definitely make sure.
Yeah. I'm just going to get your name.
Just to double check it, just
yeah.
to make sure. Typically, we update this chart pretty much in real time whenever we get a request. For us, it's pretty easy. It's very similar to the phone list that they get at the front desks, except that we have modifications so that it highlights people who are mobility challenged. Victor, if you want to,
Thank you, Nancy. We're going to make sure you get on the list. Hold on one sec. I'm just going to get to, and then I'll get to you.
Well, I have a couple of questions. First off, once in a while, one of us should try to push a door. We have no idea how heavy those doors are and how they really work. So I suggest at some point you have a group of people who might try to push the door. That's number one. Number two, what does concern me is the small number of people you have at night here. So that if an alarm goes off and we know one happened in the 4,000 and one happened in the 3,000, and if you don't know exactly how many people are on walkers or wheelchairs and you only have 3 or 4 people on at night, that's not going to work because people are going to panic. So is there an emergency crew of your people who live nearby?
That's a great point. Personally, myself, I've worked overnights here. I've been here for 6 years, one of the EMTs on shift. I do exterior tours every night. I am one of the night shift supervisors along with Brian Hutton, who's one of our paramedics here. And I could speak on behalf of my team that we have had situations, some mechanical issues have arisen. Some people have, pulled and activated fire alarms by accident. So that's a great point. We are short. We don't have 10, 15 people or even 6 people like we normally do on a good day. So we work together, like Will said, with Dedham Fire. Dedham Fire has not only a fire engine, they have a ladder, they also have a fire commander. So there's about 10 to 15 firefighters that come to a response. And again, that's not just a fire in building wide, that's also for a single smoke detector. You're burning food, you overcook some eggs, burn toast. Dedham Fire responds Their response time is within 10 minutes on average. Like Will said, for an active fire, it's a lot faster for a building wide. And that's about the general response. So we have between Dedham Fire and our night shift team, the overnight team, it's about 15 to 20 people. Where you think it would be just the 3 people. So that was a great point.
It is a great point, and Noah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Extremely well said. I do want to give you guys an indication too, because this is something that we learned who were involved in the villas. So, if there's a supervisory, Dedham Fire is going to send a fire engine. If it's a fire alarm, they're going to send a couple of fire engines. If it's a sprinkler activation, they're sending
3 or 4.
ambulances and probably Newton because they know what community this is. So just to let you know, that last slide with our partners and Mass Map, we are one of the leading contributors of Mass Map. We have helped them. We have helped our 400 partners with shuttles and things like that. If we are ever in need, they will get our back. But excellent point.
Another thing to note too is that although you may think there may not be enough staff, is because like you mentioned, the layers of security, the different buildings elements that are there to help separate that also applies to independent living in the residences as well. The floors are segmented by concrete. The stairwells themselves are segmented. So usually you got a lot of time. It took us 20 minutes to evacuate just the 1,000 building. And
I do want to say a couple of quick things. Thank you so much, Will. A couple of quick things. A couple of residents here talked to me about us doing this presentation without masks. Hopefully we'll be pulling the masks down soon. I know that it's a pain point to some of you guys, especially like reading lips. But here's another constant miss. It's something that I want to get immortalized in one of these presentations, because it's no matter how many times I say this, people don't understand this, and this is the truth. If a fire alarm goes off and you don't see smoke and you don't see fire and you don't see security, you're good, guys. Calmly collect your stuff and just wait till you hear an overhead message, because it's coming. It's when you see security, we are going right, and we do AARs, after action reviews, for any alarm stuff where we look at video, we check response time, and our response times are second to none. So I don't want to go off into a tangent.
Are you aware that we had a fire alarm, a false alarm, in Building 3000 just a couple of nights ago? So, and I'm in Building 3000. That the fire engines came, 2 of them, and they parked in the circle, and obviously there was no fire, and it was a false alarm. Number one, I don't know how false alarms happen, but that I didn't see any Newbridge people coming to tell us it's okay, you can go back home now. But the Dedham Fire Department that was there very, very quickly, and I'm sure that they had hoses and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just wondering, at what point do the Newbridge people come out and tell us this is a false alarm, you can go home?
So you just brought up something that is really concerning to me. So like, we are doing announcements on the PA system, and what I think is happening, and we're going to confirm this when we do our drills. I was here for a false alarm here on Thursday night, and I literally did the PA system 10 times and documented that I did the PA system 10 times. I think that it just goes in the hallway, and when you have these, I think a lot of people can't hear it in the hallway and nobody wants to open the door to listen to it. So I think that's the problem. So I think we have to identify another way of...
in addition to that, the other thing too is we're also responding first to the location of it.
Yeah.
And in the case of this one, I can't give any other details other than there was a task that did require at least one of our officers to be,
Yeah.
busy.
Yeah,
They couldn't get to the
here.
camp
Here is
quick
the
there.
here. This is a great point, guys. I'm going to tell you guys straight out. Okay, I want to maintain everybody's dignity. The first 3,000 alarm issue we had, the security team literally had to identify. Okay, they literally needed to identify a water flow valve that was leaking. They had to shut off that valve. Usually we get a pre-alarm, and we did not get it. Those guys were ambushed, and they found, without engineering, they found that leaking valve and prevented a limited evacuation. Okay? A lot of members were really irate because it was a long duration alarm. The fire department would not clear it, and we were getting bombarded with calls. There needs to be a little bit of specializing and trust that the two guys who are on duty are working feverishly on getting things done. Now, I'm not defending anything, or we can always do things better. The second alarm, the one that you're talking about, was a resident, independent living resident, who literally woke up, had a bad dream, and pressed an alarm. Yeah. So here's the thing, guys. No. You know what? Life is so hard, guys. It really is. And you know what? I believe in brotherly and sisterly and community kindness. And we don't know what other people are going through. But the message is this. Everyone wants the communication. We will get it, but you're not going to help by calling security off the hook. Take this training to heart. We just told you guys that this community is designed to shelter in place. It's one of the selling points here. Okay.
So, talking about Sunday morning's incident, you've talked about segmentation. Is that segmentation within buildings? So, because some of us...
Great point. Yeah. So 3,000 and 4,000, there are breakpoints where you see those fire doors close, which segment off the east and the west side. And that's throughout every floor, first, second, third, and 4,000, the fourth floor as well. Similar in the community center, you'll see the fire doors after the bridge before Centro. Also, the hallway leading towards 3,000 near the concierge desk, you'll see those doors closed too as well.
Okay. So that's why some of us got the alarm to evacuate.
That's correct. Yep.
And so, okay.
Exactly. So, like Will and I had mentioned earlier, where you hear an adjoining message, the adjoining or adjacent building, that's what it's referring to. So if you're on 3,000, say you're in 3221, which is on the west side, again, horizontal evacuation to the east side. Exactly.
Okay, but
That's
you
one.
just said horizontal evacuation. But you also have said go to the nearest staircase. So which should it be? Because we went immediately to our staircase.
Yep. No, it's what you're able to do so.
So can I take
Yeah, go right
this
ahead.
real quick, and then you can take it. So, Mr. Small, Charlie, these things are very fluid, and it requires acuity and situational awareness and environmental awareness. So I'm going to just tell you, the one alarm where you went down the stairwell, you could have easily gone to the opposite side and been good. You would have literally had the alarm, female evacuate message with the light, go across the 3,000. That's the benefit of 3,000, 4,000. Light, see the door closed. All of a sudden, it's the male message. Stand by.
So you have the option.
Well,
But here's the thing. Here's the problem. I'm going somewhere with this. That water flow that you guys had in the 3,000,
4,000.
what 4,000?
4,000, yeah.
Both the water flow alarms affect both sides. So that's why it's important for us to tell you that you might not, we don't want to set you guys up to fail. So that's what I'm
The-
trying to say.
the
is
other thing to note-
certain mechanical failures preclude you from using that.
And actually, one small correction, Victor. If you do pull the pull station, the whole building goes into full evacuation message. That's what it says on the overhead announcement. And unfortunately, that's
See,
the fire
so-
code.
That's another thing.
So we can't change the message on what it says. Definitely.
So you indicated that I could have gone horizontal. One. Yeah.
For a lot of people who are mobility challenged, we talk about horizontal evacuation because they want to know what their option is in the event they can't get down the stairs, but they want to know where to go to in the event they evacuate.
I just want to clarify.
Yes.
When I get the message
Yep.
to evacuate, do I not evacuate?
You can.
I
You don't
can?
necessarily
You mean I have
to
a
immediate.
choice?
You do not immediately have to take your time. If you're not in an area where there's obviously fire and smoke, we'll begin the point of evacuation. A lot of times, again, we've only had one actual fire here out of probably 300 or 400 alarms. So we have many situations where people have asked us, they stop us in the hall while we're en route, and we tell people, nope, please wait till we do an overhead announcement, but we do not need to leave.
I understand that, but with all due respect, when you get an alarm in the middle of the night, you're woken up and it
Yep.
tells you evacuate, it does take a little time to realize what's happening, and the idea is to evacuate. There's no, it seems like you're.
So yeah, no,
Sure.
Charles, here's the answer. We want you to evacuate. We want you to evacuate.
I don't want mixed messages.
No, I hear you. We want you to evacuate. But we want you to do it intelligently. Because here's the thing. If we rile each other up and just go with the evacuation, falls are so much more life-altering, and you will not recover from a fall. And we just told you how many layers of safety are here. So very important, take your time, because we have people here. No, I know what you're doing, Charles. I know what you're doing.
Okay.
You want clarity. We're giving you clarity. We want you to evacuate safely.
Can I follow up on that? Because I'm on the other end of the 3,000. I'm at 3303. I woke up to the male voice saying an alarm has been in an adjoining building. Wait for further announcements. Then my friends who are on the other end said their lights were flashing. It was no, so this is the zone. I guess that was my question.
Thank
if
you.
the doors closed, so I got a different message. I got the mail.
You're good.
It said just wait, and then it said it's all clear. There's no fire.
Yeah, that's
So
what I
that will
thought.
happen in 3 and 4.
Yeah, that's so I designed this thing back in 2011. This was before I became the infection controller for this community and had to deal with COVID 365 days a year. But we designed this complex system
So,
I battled, me and Rhonda Gleiman did not want an evacuation message. With Rick Radosta, when we were designing this program as a young man, I wanted to have the standby message because we had internal staff that could direct residents on the right way to do it. But I got declined on that because Rick Radosta interpreted the fire code differently than any other fire person that I ever worked with in 20 plus years of doing this.
okay, so I wasn't dreaming. I did
No,
get the right one.
thank you.
Because people said they told us
Because
to-
that was the compromise was
Okay.
3,000 and 4,000, we would segment it so people with mobility could go. But the problem was that the water flow, I know for a fact that the water flow negated that and both sides lit up.
That one actually, because it's building wide.
Yeah. But thank you. I really appreciate that.
My question is, when we evacuate, and we have now gone down 2, 3, 4 floors,
and find ourselves at a doorway that goes outside, what do we find outside? Do we find a little piece of cement that's we're all supposed to stand on? Do we keep going through the trees to a road? What are we supposed to be doing?
So, like I mentioned earlier during the presentation,
This was covered in the
the
presentation.
primary, the preferred evacuation point in the building, unless it is unsafe to do so,
Floor level.
is the ground floor main entrance. That's where the fire department comes through. That's where security will be doing their announcements and overhead paging from the fire panel. That said, if you were to go through the stairwell, please note that I think 90+% of these stairwell doors, once you go outside, you cannot come back through the other side of the door. Obviously, weather permitting, we would just ask you just to wait there. Depending on the time of day, we're working on lighting for a couple key points because it's just a path that connects to a sidewalk that you would then follow elsewhere.
Thank you, Will. So yeah, one of the biggest training points in any security training is, and I can't repeat this enough, and I'll repeat it 15 different ways till Sunday. You want to explore your emergency egress so you're familiar with where to go before an emergency. And you always want to kind of go where there's pavement and to be honest with you, 3,000, 2,000, 1,000, 2,000, you want to try to get closest to the community center because this is our #1 staging area. But I'm going to say that repeatedly. I've been saying it 900 different ways for 11 years. You got to learn these things before an emergency. Jack?
Yes, thank you. Is it possible to very simply write this information down that we need, the procedures that
Yep. We're trying to work on it.
allow us to leave the house and, what we do, 1, 2, 3, 4? Can this be written down and given to each one of us?
Yep. We're working on a community-wide pamphlet.
All right,
that
so
with people.
we are working on one, but I'm going to be honest with you. I'm talking to the community life team. We're going to play this on 9/18, and I'm also going to be playing the Rhonda Glyman Zoom call, which goes over all of this stuff at nauseum. And we're actually going to take the Rhonda Glyman's questions and answers, and our guy Andrew is going to create a pamphlet cheat sheet to hopefully 1 page, 2 page with all this information. But great advice, Jack. Oh, hold on. We got Arlene.
Thanks a lot. Okay. I was alone when I heard this late at night or somewhere early in the morning. It was dark outside, and I didn't hear it clearly. So I got up and went by the door, touched the door, and it wasn't hot, and there was no one in the hallways. No one. And the thing was constantly going. I don't even remember what it was saying anymore, but at some point it said it was another building, don't worry about it. But
So,
but the point is that that thing did not stop saying what it was saying. It didn't say evacuate. It just said there is a problem in another building. So I did what I did before in 111 Perkins Street, is I took my shoes that had rubber soles with a strap across the front. I took my little purse that had some money in it and my driver's license, which I always do, or did there also, and kept looking out the hallway, and there was not a peep. I'm on the top floor of the 5,000 building. No one was in the walkway. No one was in the hallways. Not a word. And I wasn't going to go out of my room and go knock on someone's door and
Yep.
say, what's
No,
up?
that's the perfect response. Just wait.
Yep.
So
Thank you,
like Victor's mentioned before, right? In the event that the alarm, you hear that the alarm is in the adjacent building,
Or
be
it's a call.
prepared to be evacuated, but shelter in place. Remain in your apartment. Again, the fire is not near you. Like you said, you check the hallways. Again, security is, you won't see in that building. You won't see us in the hallways running around. We are looking towards the fire. We are responding to that area.
And one thing to note too is we cannot stop those alarms. until the original alarm itself has been cleared. It'll continue. Yeah, unfortunately, we can't stop it. Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. Great. Thank you.
In terms of the comment up there where it takes a community to protect a community, I just want everyone to know that I recognize, as many I'm sure recognize, that it's a short staff. Okay. In commenting on it takes a community to protect a community, I recognize, as I hope others recognize, that this is not a very large staff and we're dependent on them, but we're dependent on each other. And incidents like Sunday morning provide learning for all of us. So when we went downstairs and there was a path immediately outside our emergency exit, but it wasn't lit. I sent a message to all the appropriate people, letting them know. The security staff responded very quickly, and I know they're now working on providing additional lighting. So we all have to work together, and I know they do respond when they become aware of situations that they may not be aware of.
Charles, that is so well said. And I look around this room and I see people that I've developed relationships with over the last decade. And we are so much further ahead right now than we were when I first walked in this door 11 years ago. And it's because of those types of communications. Sharing experientially with the people that matter the most what you experienced and giving us an opportunity to make it better. I do want to just clean up one thing, guys. We are not short-staffed. We are appropriately staffed. In a perfect world, we would have so much more. And going back to a question that was made, that fire alarm situation where we did do a limited evacuation, I have a team. Google Mark Roach. He just joined our team. Captain Mark Roach from Newton Fire. 39-year veteran. He just joined our team. Detective Bob Walsh. He just joined our team. But gentlemen like Noah Bork and Will Kent, whether it's Sunday night or a Thursday afternoon, if we need more people in, and these guys have proven it during the dark days of the pandemic, they call. They answer the call. And they show up, guys. I don't want to be dramatic, but it's the truth. You know, Mike Huff, Brian Hutton, it is a department filled with leaders who take shepherding and guiding this community to its safest point very seriously. But thank you, Charles. And thank you, Mayor. Thank you, John. Thank you, Helene. Thank you all so much, Arlene, Nancy. We're going to make sure you're on that list. That's the thing, guys. Communicate it to us. Communicate it to the security control room. We will facilitate it. We're not going to be perfect. I'm telling you. You know, my wife always says, "Don't be a sorry man. Just do better." And that's what we're going to constantly do. Put our feelings aside and do better. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys so much.